All right, everyone, time to take a look at the second episode of the day, which is Collision Course. The episode starts with Oliver being informed on the murder of Kate and James while in the police station. Oliver then starts a Team Arrow meeting where a few members express their disappointment with the city not having gotten the cash they wanted to Caden. Oliver pauses for a minute to talk with Lance and Thea, and he coaches Lance that Dinah is out of control and attempting to find and kill Black Siren. Dinah and another police investigator enter Oliver's office and advise him that Caden's Seaward record was being purged, and they have no follow-ups for who took it. Oliver cautions the team that if the cash isn't returned within 48 hours, Star City's economy will suffer a crushing end. The following day, Dinah comes back with the investigator. The two uncover the withdrawal logs from the bank and have security camera footage of Laurel making the withdrawal. We see at that point that Lance has taken Laurel to a cottage after their past fight. He's been dealing with her gunshot wound. The following day, Lance is talking with Oliver and Thea at the workplace. They're brainstorming ways on the most proficient way to find Laurel, but Lance doesn't tell the siblings he's been dealing with her. Curtis, Renee, and Dinah are back at the scene where Laurel was shot. You only see the innovation Curtis made, discover that Laurel was hauled away from the scene, in spite of the fact they're not able to discover who it was that hauled her away. All respect the layer with Laurel. They bond over their basic love of prepared soup when we see that Thea has followed Lance to the cottage and staring at the pair through a window. Oliver, Felicity, and Diggle go to a similar rear entry and furthermore discover the black sign was taken from the scene. They go to Team Arrow 2.0's lair and question the trio on the off chance that they took Laurel or not. The straight argument closes with Oliver sticking Renee against the wall as Diggle and Felicity search the dugout for Laurel. They don't find anything and leave. When Oliver, Felicity, and Diggle leave, Renee tells his accomplices that he planned to put Curtis's listening chips on Oliver. Presently, New Team Arrow have the option to hear the entirety of their plans. At Lance's cottage, Thea enters and approaches him about concealing Laurel. Thea calls Oliver and puts Laurel on speakerphone. Laurel closest to Oliver the main way she'll give the cash back is for the group to assist her with escaping the country without getting injured by Dinah. Oliver, Felicity, and Diggle agree to help, and while going to Lance's lodge, they're being trailed by New Team Arrow. Oliver friends at the end lose NTA and dispatch of the GPS beacon that was set on Oliver. New Team Arrow conceptualizes an approach to discover Oliver and friends. Of course, reveals he has a way. However, it will greatly hurt Diggle. At the lodge, Diggle starts to squirm miserably. Chris has the implant in his arm to utilize it to follow Diggle's area. As Diggle, Felicity, Oliver, Thea, and Lance go to move Laurel, they're met outside by Renee, Dinah, and Curtis. The two groups begin battling as Lance and Laurel escape to the forested area behind the lodge. Dinah follows the pair and starts battling with Lance. Dinah takes Lance out and is going to execute Laurel as Carl strolls in and convinces Dinah to stop. Laurel gets no capacity to utilize her powers to hold Curtis and Dinah back as she gets away. The two groups meet in the forested areas to keep battling. However, it's uncovered that Renee's been greatly injured. The original team members meeting at their refuge and discuss on whether to go to the hospital to see Renee. The team only chooses to go see how their former teammate is getting along. Dinah and Curtis are talking in the sitting area, and Curtis consoles Dinah that they'll follow Laurel and capture her. Oliver returns to the bunker and gets ready to tell his team that they couldn't recover the cash that was wired to Kate and James. Oliver tells his associates that he's uncertain whether they'll ever recoup the cash. Dinah and Curtis learn that Renee's wounds are a lot worse than they expected, and will be moved to a greater emergency clinic outside of Star City. Somewhere else, Laura appeals by distribution center and lies that she was kidnapped with the goal that one of the laborers will support her. Hmm. So anyway, let's take a look at some trivia surrounding this episode. This episode is tied with irreconcilable differences as the lowest rated episode of season 6 with a rating of 7.2 on IMDb. Renee refers to Curtis as Mr. T and says that he pities those fools, referring to the actor and retired professional wrestler of the same name, and his catchphrase, I pity the fool. This episode shares a similar premise with the MCU film Captain America Civil War, where two vigilante teams, once a unified group, fight over disagreement on how to handle an adversary of theirs, with both sides having their own reasons and ideas of preserving justice. The answer Laurel uses Seodragajai is a Cantonese approximation for a little bird, which was Black Canary's nickname in the comics. Quinton mentions Hunter Zolman, Adrian Chase, and Kaden James as father figures that Laurel has taken on. This is the first time that Laurel's time as Zoom's lieutenant is mentioned on Arrow. The title refers to the fight between Arrow and New Team Arrow. And now finally, let's take a look at some goofs. As is often the case, the banking procedures in this episode are telegenic but do not match reality. A person does not need to travel to the country of the bank in order to withdraw funds, unless an in-person meeting is required for the bank's own policy, but not every bank will accept a fax-signed letter of authorization. An accountant cannot withdraw funds from a bank account unless he has been authorized by the account owner. 70 million should not be needed to withdraw in cash, the reason for doing it in person, as that would be excessively bulky in any extent US dollar denomination. There is no such thing as a withdrawal log, although records are kept of wire receipts of wire recipients. Money cannot be withdrawn as bearer bonds. Bearer bonds are issued by a company or the government, not by a bank, and not for purposes of withdrawing funds. Interesting. So I think this episode is pretty good, and yeah, I just hope that the two teams will hopefully start actually working together at some point instead of fighting with each other. But hey, who knows? So overall, I give Collision Course 4 arrowheads out of 5. When I tune in as we took the final episode of the day, Doppelganger. So until then, in the words of Oliver Queen, you have failed this city.